Friday morning. This is just unbelievable. We've been talking about squatters all day. 2 squatters are being sought over the gruesome murder of a 52-year-old New York woman whose body was found stuffed in a duffel bag inside her mother's upscale Manhattan apartment. Police say she was savagely beaten by 2 monsters when she discovered them inside her mom's 19th floor apartment on East 31st Street. Having just flown in from Spain, Vitale had gone to her late mom's apartment, which had been vacant for roughly 3 to 4 months, and she's going to start preparing it so that a family friend could move in. Quote, we believe that some squatters took the apartment over, and this woman came home and walked in on the squatters, and they brutally killed her.
Beautiful woman, too.
Beautiful, yes.
Did you read further down? Who discovered her body?
No.
Her 19-year-old son.
Oh, God. Blunt force trauma to the head, multiple facial fractures, brain bleed, 2 broken ribs. And then they stuffed her in a duffel bag. Now, we don't know who they are. They apparently took off in her Lexus SUV. So they do have a plate number. When they do find them, I hope they find them soon. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. This is why you don't play with this stuff. This is why I said I'm gonna drag him out by the throat. You do this because of this stuff like this, you know.
Yeah. The son opened the closet door near the front door and discovered the duffel bag with a foot sticking out.
Can you
want
imagine
to live
that?
like that? Why don't we need to change the state laws about squatting? And we talked about squatters because our new Venezuelan neighbor, I don't even want to say his name, but the TikToker, he's instructing people on how to come to America. He did that first, and then he said, have a baby, and you'll be taken care of for life. And now he's telling people, and this Venezuelan, this mouthy dude who I can't stand, teaching people how to squat.
Mi gente!
He's like,
My people, I have thought about invading a house in the United States because I learned there's a law that says if a house is not inhabited, we can expropriate it. I think that will be my next business. Invade abandoned houses.
I mean, why can't they find this guy and deport him?
They probably know where he's at.
I'm sure they know where he's at.
You know what, Amy? I talked about all that, but that's why I'm so grateful. I don't have to worry about how you guys got Kim Fox. The presiding judge is Tim Evans.
Tim Evans.
You know what? In the 23rd Judicial, I have presiding judge Stephen Krantz, and one of the best judges in the entire United States. I mean, in the entire United States of America. And I watch judges, and Stephen Krantz is one of the best. And then I got a great state's attorney in Eric Weiss. I'm telling you, I was proud to go into the voting booth and vote for both of those people because I know that they both are going to stand up to the make sure they follow the law. And if that was to happen in our county, they're not taking this stuff.
And we don't know if those 2 were here legally or illegally.
Right.
But can you imagine if they're
they're squatters
illegally? But they're squatters regardless.
Right.
And then you get some guy instructing people how to take our homes from us, illegals that are here. With more on this and then what happened in El Paso with that mad rush, let's welcome back to the program Mark Morgan, former U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner. Good morning, Mr. Morgan. How are you?
Amy, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've seen the video of there's reports of 400 to 500 illegals cutting razor wire and pretty much plowing down Texas National Guard troops.
Yeah, look, this is just another example. I think it was about a year and a half ago, if you remember, we had a large group of illegal aliens that came across the border, invading the border, bum rushing and trying to overrun Border Patrol. And you remember what that image was, though? They were carrying the flag of their home country.
That's right.
It wasn't just a little flag. Remember,
it was a
like
bed sheet size. Remember?
Right, exactly. And so this is just another example. How many more examples do we need to know to show the absolute chaos and lawlessness at our border? And think about who was there. It was the Texas National Guard. Where were the federal resources? Well, the federal resources are not on the front line anymore. Why? Because this administration has transformed their law enforcement and national security mission to one of a processing enterprise. That's very important There's literally no enforcement and national security work being done because those resources have been relegated to being in facilities doing administrative work, processing and releasing illegal aliens into our country. There are some areas where at times every checkpoint and 85 to 90% of Border Patrol resources have been all pulled off the front line, relegated to administrative duties to now fulfill their new role of being that processing enterprise.
Well, once they get, it just makes no sense. I used to live in El Paso and I lived in Tucson, so I've spent some time with Border Patrol. I can't imagine that those are their new job duties. But once they're processed, then what happens? They get these asylum hearings that are 2 to 3 years out.
It's worse than that. I mean, this is one of the biggest things. If you remember, within the first few weeks, this president issued 94 executive orders, 94, that dismantled and destroyed the network of tools, authorities that we had in place that led to the most secure border in our lifetime. And the facts back that up. They don't have to listen to me. Go to CBP Stats. Every one of your listeners, CBP Stats, and it's right there in black and white. But here, look, we don't have enough time to talk about all of them. But here's one of the big things they did. They reinstated catch and release. And one way they did that was they ended the Remain in Mexico program. And so what we told the entire world that now under this administration, if you come to our border, you will be released into the interior United States, never to be heard from again. Like you said, their hearings are 6, 7, 8 years down the road. And by then, forget about it. You're never going to find them. They're never going to be deported. In fact, DHS's own life cycle report says that once they're released into the interior United States, once they get a final order removal, less than 10% of them will ever be removed.
Wow.
And then what about this? Because we were hearing yesterday that more incompetence coming from the White House, that some 200,000 migrant deportation cases are being thrown out because they failed to file the paperwork correctly. What's that all about?
Yeah, think about it. This is no surprise. The past 38 months, there have been 9.1 million total nationwide encounters. Think about that. 9.1 million. There is no a nation on the face of the planet that could sustain that. So when you have that volume, that level of invasion, it's a broken arrow. The federal personnel cannot keep up, and it's inevitable that there's things that are going to fail and slip through the cracks. This is just one example of many. Think about it. And I know you and I talked about it before. How many illegal aliens with criminal backgrounds have been released into the interior United States because they're overwhelmed? That's another fallacy right now. This administration tries to tell the American people they're lying when they say they vet people. When they say that, American people have this false sense of security. That means we know everything about them before they're being released. And that's just a lie. Yeah. There is no way. There are many countries we don't have diplomatic relationships with that we're getting zero information with respect to that individual's criminal history or their ties to terrorism. That's just one of the many big lies. Yeah. So this latest incident is no surprise because our system is broken and it's overwhelmed.
Yeah. And Mark, and what just happened in Texas, Senate Bill 4, the fifth Court of Appeals just blocked it again. You would think that the federal government would work in concert with the state of Texas and Governor Abbott. What does this new blockage means, and how do you think it will affect the enforcement at the border?
So, look, what a great question, because this really brings up what I say all the time, that what's happening at our border and border security, you don't have to be an expert. It's just common sense. And you just highlighted one of the most basic common sense aspects, that federal and local state law enforcement agencies should work together. Yeah. Right, for the betterment of this nation, and in this case, to secure, defend, and protect the border from a vast set of threats coming across. When I was the commissioner, that's exactly what we did. There was no need for SB4 because as a commissioner, for example, I was working with the director of Texas DPS, Steve McGraw, all the time. We had a great working relationships. So it's absurd that Texas actually needed to pass such a law, and absurd now that as they're trying to fill the void that's been left by the federal government's refusal to do their job, they're actively trying to prevent them from safeguarding their own state. Right. Now, the only thing I can say right now, the back and forth with SB4, it's not on the merits. It's just rather can they implement it while they're waiting to hear on the merits. That's going back and forth. My prediction is it's eventually going to end up at the Supreme Court based on the merits of it, and I hope that the Supreme Court does the right thing and says that Governor Abbott's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Johnson led Congress. I don't know if it's HR 2 or HR 4.
Two.
HR 2. Okay, the illegal immigration overhaul bill. Should that become the law? And do you think should Trump win, it gets implemented day one?
First of all, HR 2, I'm glad you brought this up. HR 2, this is very important for your listeners. It's the strongest piece of border security legislation that's ever been passed in our lifetime. That's a huge statement. So that's a significant win for the Republicans on the House side. It provides a legitimate, meaningful policy pathway forward that, if implemented, you would see the reduction in the chaos and lawlessness almost overnight. It addresses almost every single significant loophole and issue that we need right now. And here's the issue is that HR 2 would force this administration to do certain things, like, for example, end catch and release, among others. That actually, and think about it, HR 2 was passed 10 months ago, and the Senate sat on it. If the Senate would have passed it, Biden would have signed it 10 months. That was 10 months ago.
Right.
You would have already seen a reduction of about 60 to 70% of the chaos and lawlessness at our border. So Johnson, he held strong for so long, but now he's pushing a bill right now that was even worse than the Langford bill, and it makes no sense. We should stand strong, HR 2.
All right. Mark Morgan, always a pleasure having you on.
I gotta have him
informational. Oh, yeah. Because this issue's not going away anytime soon, and just have to pray for those people down there that are trying to protect our border.
I gotta have him on my show. I gotta have you on my show, Mark.
We'll get you his digits.
Let's do it.
All right, Mark Morgan.
Hey, look, and I know everything I come on, I'm always depressing, but it's just the reality.
No, I know. It's the reality we live because people voted for this.
Yeah.
All right, former U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Mark Morgan, thank you so much for joining us. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
This is Jerry Boyer for townhall.com. At the State of the Union speech, President Biden claimed victory over inflation.
My inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation